Okay.
All right, let's get this thing started. So, thank you everybody for attending. This is really awesome for our first Authorpreneur Guest Speaker Series with Roxanne Bocyck. Roxanne is the author of Catherine's Dream, and she has been part of our Authorpreneur community for several months now. And we
Yeah.
appreciate her so much because she's not only here to get her own accountability, but to offer some of her advice and assistance to our authors, because some of them she's a little bit ahead of. And I'll let her introduce herself. But before we get started, the Authorpreneur community is an online group that we have for our authors internally. So if you're a part of our Herd Trek authors, which is our shared royalty package, this comes with the publishing. And it is a group of authors who get together once a week to chat about our goals and hold each other accountable. And then we have guides and resources, challenges, and communication through an app. And just to help us achieve what we set out to do when we wrote a book to begin with. And it also makes it a lot more fun, I think, if you are kind of lean towards wanting to spend some time with other people who are experience the same thing as you. So
Yes.
if you would like to join, please check out our website in the Authorpreneur community. There is a free 14-day trial, so you can come to actually 2 meetings and check it out. You know, no strings attached, to just see if this is a place that is a good fit for you. And if not, that's okay.
That's okay.
And with that, I'll hand it over to you, Roxanne.
Oh, well, thank you, Laura. So as Laura said, my name is Roxanne Bocyck, and I've always wanted to write, and I would do anything I could to write. Okay, so that meant if I went to a meeting, like for one of my kids, events, I'll take the notes. Or there was a weekly newspaper that I wrote for because I wanted to see my name in print, So I'm like, okay. So I wrote for the weekly newspaper, and there you go. There I am. Wow. And at work, they needed someone to do a newsletter. Oh, I know, I'll do it. And so when I would try to get a writing job, though, it would be like the person with the college degree would get it over me. And I would be like, really? Because it would be a tie. They'd like my writing and all of that. So then I decided to go back to school at age 44. And I got my degree in writing and communication. So that was really a great way for me to be around writers and learn the process. So I'm just happy to be here to share with all of you, some of the things I've been through, and hopefully that'll help you with your journey as authors. And as Laura pointed out, my debut novel is Catherine's Dream. There it is. And it's based on a true story about my Polish grandmother, who we always knew came from Poland in the steerage of the ship and went through Ellis Island. But this family secret came out around the year 2000, and it was like my mother's oldest sister had a different father, and her children grew up believing my grandfather was theirs. And it's like, wait, what? But that's not what really made me write the story. I learned that my grandmother originally came under an arranged marriage, and she ended up in a paper mill town up near Canton and Potsdam in a town called Pirates. And it's what happened to her up there that made me say, oh my goodness, I've got to tell this story. So that's my little elevator pitch. But yeah, so I just enjoy being an author and working on some more books. And yeah, so I'm here, and I'd like to learn from any of you too. I learned Rand, he has a book that just was released. Congratulations, Rand. And Ryan has a couple books, children's books, and he's a filmmaker. That's
Thank you. Thank you.
awesome. And Sandra, she has a book, right? Sandra, are you going to be at the Central New York Book Awards? I think you're going to those, which my book was just nominated for that. So I'm so happy because that's something to do as an author. You need to be proud of what you've done. So apply for those book awards. You never know. You never know. Some of them might cost a little money, but don't pay hundreds of dollars, Don't do that. But a lot of them are free. So great. And then Karen, I understand you're going to be a newly published author as well. So congratulations to everyone that's here. So, well, how would you like to start off, Laura?
I think just sharing your insights and what you think that authors should know going into after they've published and what happens after that.
All right, great. So I was telling Ryan this the other day on the Authorpreneur weekly call, which is very helpful, by the way, that becoming an author is like a roller coaster ride. You know, you've got that uphill climb, kind of like, I can do this, I can do this. Yes, okay, I'm finding a publisher, or I'm going to publish the book myself, whatever you're deciding. And when you get to the top, it's like, yes. And then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, hold on, because you're about ready for a ride, you know, because once the book is published, you don't just sit back and go, okay, yep, I published a book, now it'll sell. Well, we have to go through the twists and turns of being an author and marketing our books. But it's exciting, like a roller coaster ride, you know? And the thing is, you don't just go on it once, you're going to always be on it. So it's pretty exhilarating. And I want you to know that one of the things you need to do as an author is remember you're a professional. You know, you are a professional. You're an authorpreneur. And many times you're a business, right? Because you might have a business card, right, that you hand out to people. I made some bookmarks about my book, and I use these, like say I'm in the grocery line at Wegmans, and there was a woman behind me holding a book. And I was like, oh, it must be you like to read. She goes, oh, I do. Oh, what do you like to read? She goes, fiction, you know, historical fiction. Oh my gosh, perfect. Here's my card. You know what I mean? You don't know if she's going to purchase my book, but you're always marketing yourself, you know, whether it's at the bank or wherever, you know, family and friends. So you're not necessarily saying, buy my book. You're saying, check my book out, you know, maybe you'll like it. And another little thing I did was I went to a printer and I printed off the first 3 chapters of my book. Because again, sometimes when people are looking at your book or they're at your book table, they're like, I'm not really sure. And I go, well, here you go. You could have a sample, see if you like it. And I also have a sample on my website as well. So people can say, try it before you buy it, you know? So it's just a way too to engage in a conversation with someone. And a lot of times what happens when I give this to people, they'll go, you know what? I think I'll buy your book. Oh, okay. You know, like I say, you're not just selling your book, you're talking about it. You're being passionate about the message that's in your story. Because whether it's a children's book or a novel or a nonfiction book, there's a message, right? That we're trying to convey. And that's the thing. You need to focus on that message. And it helps you to market it better because you sound authentic, you know, and that's what people like, right? Authenticity.
How did you figure out what to say?
Well, exactly. You know, when I was going to college, I had to go, I always wanted to write for radio. So they had a radio club. Okay. So one of the first assignments was we had to go to a gun, you know, the places where they'll have guns for sale. And I forget what it's called, but it was an expo, you know.
Like a
And
gun
so I'm
show?
with the other students. Oh, what'd you say, Rand?
A gun show where
Yeah, a
they
gun show. There you go, Ryan. And the people I was with would walk up to the person with their display and they would say, hey, what do you think about gun control? You know, like, okay, wait a minute. Someone's going to be like backing up. But I approached it as, wow, some of these guns look very historic. Could you tell me about them? You know what I'm saying? You want to use open-ended questions that get people talking. So that's how I've learned to approach people. And when I have my book table, I'll often have little items to get their attention, like a Polish flag, you know, I'll have Polish flags on my table. And of course, I'll have some candy. That always gets people's attention. And another thing I do is I have this like enter to win. So I'll go to my local Barnes and Noble only because Barnes and Noble's online, or you could do it with an Amazon card. And what I'll do is say to someone, hey, I'm celebrating the publishing of my book. My book was released, you know, it doesn't matter if it was 9 months ago, I'm still celebrating, right? So I tell them, enter to win a $20 Barnes and Noble gift card. Now, when I go to get that Barnes and Noble gift card, I go to my local Barnes and Noble store.
I muted.
Oh, who's muted? Oh, okay, go ahead. But you got to make a relationship with your bookstores, right? You can't just go into a bookstore and say, hey, I wrote a book. Want to put it on your shelf? Oh, that's like those people that went up, hey, what do you think of gun control? You know, it's like in your face. So when I go to the Barnes and Noble and I say, oh yeah, how are you? You know, oh, I'm the manager. Oh, nice to meet you. Because many times the manager's running the register. And I said, oh, well, I'm an author and I'm having a book table and I'm here to buy a gift card to promote my book. Oh, wow. Okay. Now maybe they'll talk with you, but maybe he's busy because there's a line. But then the next time I go back, he kind of recognizes me. Hey, how are you? You know? So that's one way to do it, is getting people interested in your message, you know? So Karen, your message was about, you know, you recently had some health issues. So you might stir up a conversation with someone about that, you know? Or Rand, your book's about hiking and finding yourself and taking time to look inward, you know? It's great to kind of share those messages with people because they'll spark interest. So yeah, Laura, that's how I kind of get people interested in me, is just being authentic and having a conversation.
Okay, great. And then how do you decide which events you're gonna do? I know for you, it may be a little, well, maybe, I don't know, might be obvious for other books too, but how do you decide which ones you're gonna do?
All right, so the first event that we all want to do, right, is our book launch, right? So that one's kind of easy to figure out. So I did mine because I made that relationship with the Barnes and Noble store. I did mine at Barnes and Noble. So that was great. But after that, it was like, okay, I just want to go anywhere where I can put my book out there. So I went to, because my book released in November of 2023, there's a lot of craft shows going on. So I decided to get tables at them. Now, sure, did I go to some and I'm there for 5 or 6 hours and maybe I sold 2 books, right? But I handed out, you know, these. I handed out my bookmarks. Oops. I have a necklace that goes with my story. So I have these cards, you know, about my necklace. So you just never know. And another thing I have is I have these little because in my story, Catherine has a dream and she learns to write down what she wants. I hand out these little booklets with positive messages and pens that have positive messages. You know, this one says, make it happen. But I just got these things off Amazon. So when I'm at these events, whether it's a craft show, I'm learning, okay? So then I'm thinking, okay, it's okay to set up at craft shows, right? But it's not really working. But it does, because how did I meet Rand? Yes, at the craft show or at an event. I did Jess Novak's event, which was Fire. That event was about women and connecting and entrepreneurs. Well, I'm an entrepreneur, right? So I went there. I mean, as I'm doing this, I'm getting more comfortable with approaching people and talking with them. Another way I decided about events is my book is about my Polish grandmother, right? So I joined the Syracuse Polish Home, and they have events where they have vendors or an opportunity to speak. So I did that. That helped. One time at one of those events, I sold 3 of my necklaces. I was so excited. You know, you can't predict these things. So you just have to keep going. And another thing is, I did a lot of research in my book about local history and history of Poland. And I went to the Onondaga Historical Association and the Clay Historical Association, and I offered to do a talk for them to talk about my research. Well, that worked. People came and purchased my book. You know, I'm getting the message out there. So that was good to do. And libraries, right? You want to go and find readers, right? Put together a few presentations, whether it's about how I became a published author, about the research you did for your book, about the message in your book, and approach a library. They're always looking for people to have talks, you know? And I tell you what, those libraries have some pretty great publicity flyers and all of that. And they share it on their Facebook pages. And so it really works out well. So yeah, I just decide to do events. Just keep trying different things because you never know what works.
I like that library thing. That's a good idea.
Yeah. Yep. Libraries are great.
Then how do you
And
decide what your budget is? So you could
oh,
spend
yeah.
an endless amount of money on pens and marketing and whatever. So do you have a method or process for drawing that line?
Well, good point. Because when you have a business, right, you have to promote it, right? So you're going to spend money. I know a lot of us think, well, I publish my book, I'll have free marketing. I'll just put it on Facebook. Well, yeah, is Facebook free? Yeah, or Instagram, but no, you've really got to have items, like I say, that get people to your author table. At your author table, you're going to need a tablecloth. You're going to need to go to Hobby Lobby and, buy these book stands. And as you go to different author events, which I encourage you to do, you get ideas. So with marketing, yeah, you can spend as much or as little as you want, but it's important to know that you at least need to have some money because you're investing in yourself. I would say at least, $500 to get started, you know, at least, so you can buy the things that you need. And then you might need help with a website, so you might have to pay someone to help you with your website. So remember those things, little fees like that. Another thing with marketing is we always want to try different things, right? So it's easy, like I say, to spend money. So there's this magazine that is free at Wegmans. So being it was around holiday time, I took out an ad, okay? Now, the things with ads are you can't just do it once and think it's going to work. Now, I don't know if my ad worked, right? So what you need to do is make a relationship with a newspaper. So, for example, this is the Polish American Journal, okay? So is that not a good paper? And this is digital too, so I'm not trying to be like use a newspaper. I know that's old school. But the point is, there's my audience, right? Like whether it's a healthcare audience, Rand, there's magazines and things about hiking, or, Ryan, I know you did a children's book. There's places for that you can advertise these things, okay? So I started out by taking an ad out in the Polish American Journal, and I keep it in there every month, okay? And guess what they did? They did a book review for me. A whole book review. Wow, isn't that awesome? So that's what comes from, choose your marketing dollars wisely, right? Because even on Facebook, you could spend a lot of money on ads. But I've heard that if you just start out spending, $5 a day, do it for 5 days, see what happens. And I made relationships because my book happens in the North Country, Pirates, which is by Canton and Potsdam. There's a show called North Country Public Radio, and they interview authors. So, good old email, I reached out to them, to the gentleman who hosts the show. I listened to a few episodes first so that I could kind of, hey, I've been listening to your podcast. I like how you interview the authors. I wrote a book and I explained about it's from Pirates, and I think people would be interested in it in your listening audience. Next thing I know, he invited me up there to do an interview. So one thing I've learned is when you do something, you want to know if it worked, right? Because like I told you, that first time I did this ad, I don't know if it worked. But this time, my publisher had given me what's called author codes. And I'm sure this isn't too hard to do. You know, Wildebeest could probably do this. But you link to a website or a landing page, not really an actual website, where you give the author code to people. Like in my case, you can go to catherinesdreamgift.com. People go there, I'll get the email, then I send them a code for a free download of my book, you know, because I hate to break it to you, you got to give away a lot of books, you know. So anyhow, after that interview, I had 50 people reach out for my code. So that was a way I could know, did that type of interview work? Yes. Why do you think it worked? Because I targeted my market, right? People who are from that area that knew about that paper mill town that would be interested in my story, you know? So that's what helps with marketing. Because like I say, you could try willy-nilly. My granddaughter is in marching band, okay? So, you know, to support them, I took out an ad in their marching band booklet. Now, you know, I don't know if it worked, but that's my hometown of Phoenix, New York. So I was able to put in the ad, hey, I'm a Phoenix alumni and I wrote a book, you know? So just things like that, just connecting yourself with your audience somehow or with a group of people. I believe that's what helps your marketing. And look what else I discovered. There's another Polish magazine or newspaper out there. So I'm about to reach out to them to see what I can do. So see, and it can work. And mind you, my book came out 9 months ago and I'm still at it. You know what I'm saying? You really have to keep yourself out there, you know? Hope
Yes,
that helped.
at that point, how do you keep yourself motivated to keep going? Because like you said, it's a business and you're not going to stop doing it after a month or two.
Mm-hmm. Well, what can keep you going is when you go to set up somewhere and someone buys your book. Ooh, that's helpful. I have a contact me page. When someone reaches out to me and says, Roxanne, I really enjoyed your story, you know, woo, nice boost of energy. You know, it reminds me when I was going to college part-time as an adult student, there were times, you know, it's hard, okay? You're raising a family, you're working, you're trying to do schoolwork. And I would be like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can do this. Then I would get a scholarship. Oh my gosh. Even if it paid for one of my classes, it kept me going. So I get that same adrenaline when I go somewhere, I do a talk at a library. Okay, give you an example. The other day I got an email from a library in Port Byron, which is like, I don't know, 35 minutes from me. They wanted me to come and do a talk. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how did they find out about me? So I asked her. She had called a local library in Syracuse to see if they knew of any local authors. And my name popped up because I had been going to libraries, introducing myself, leaving a book with them that they could put in their system, doing talks with libraries. See, you stay top of mind. You never know. So here I am. And guess what? I used to be a school bus driver. And at one time I was helping in an office as an assistant supervisor. And guess where that was? Port Byron. So now when that librarian reached out to me, I was able to connect, you know, little things like that. It's really helpful for sure.
That's really inspiring. I love how that comes together.
It is. It is. Yeah. So what keeps you going? Right. Sometimes your family don't keep you going, right? You know, when I was writing my story, people would say, hey, how's your book coming along? You know, like roll their eyes, be a little sarcastic. You know what I mean? Did you get a job yet? Because I had lost my job after COVID. And that's when I decided I needed to write this story. You know, are you working yet, Roxanne? No, I'm writing my book. Oh, okay. Now when I see people, how many books have you sold? How are you doing with that? You know, it's not about, hey, Roxanne, congratulations. Wow. How you doing? What have you been doing? so you can't let people bring you down. You've got to join like an author community where you can constantly be being lifted up because
Can
you
you talk
need
about
it.
the crabs again?
Because sometimes you don't get it from your friends and family, but
Yeah, can you talk about the crabs again? I love that analogy.
oh yeah. So I learned this story about the crab bucket. So sometimes I feel like the crab, I'm trying to get out of the bucket. You're in your gap, I guess you could say. And as you're trying to get out, people are pulling you back down. Like, oh no, where are you going? What do you think? You're going to be an author and publish a book? Are you crazy? Get back down here. It's like they're trying to pull you back down. The crab bucket, I call it. So, but I made it out. Right? I got out. Oh my gosh. Oh, and another thing I do when I'm promoting my book, like especially at a book table or at a show, I wear, oops, my camera's falling down. I wear my little Polish headdress, because it kind of puts me in the spirit of my book. So Rand, like with your book, what could you wear? Wear some hiking gear, right? At your book table. People are going to come over to you and go, hey, are you a hiker? That it'll get people over to you. And Ryan, your children's story. How could you draw people to your table? I love your book covers. I looked them up on Amazon.
Thank you, thank you. I actually because I'm doing my second one in November. I'm looking to, if everything goes right, I'm gonna read at my son's school.
Perfect.
Probably a week or two prior to it. Drop some books there. And also I'm looking to read at the local library, like you were saying, which is a very good idea. And the goal is to actually have somewhere where I can actually set up, but I want to have someone dressed in the actual costume, have a costume made. I probably won't be able to do it this year, but sometime before the ending of the first quarter of next year, have them wear the costume of the hero and just
Hey,
kind of stand there as I sell and talk to the different customers.
well, Halloween's coming, so there's lots of costumes out there. Try and
Right.
find something that's similar,
Right,
take
right,
action.
right.
And then your other book is about the character goes away, right? Is it in the
Yes,
army or
yes, cheer
yeah.
up, cheer up. Yes, that was my first book I did during the pandemic. Yes, that one was also based off of my son. And we didn't know we didn't know his gender at the time, so I did boy and girl.
Yeah.
So just either or. And so yeah, that one was also I didn't really get a chance to market that one. That one was poorly marketed.
It's never
You
too
know,
late, Ryan. It's
that
never
is
too
true.
late to market
That is
your
true.
book. It doesn't
That is
matter if it came
100%
out
true.
10 years ago. You can still
A
market
hundred
it.
percent true.
Mhm.
100% true.
And you could have a picture of like someone in, I saw in your book, they're in uniform. There's a picture,
Right. Right.
things like that. So great. And Sandra, I know your story is a memoir, right? So what could you put on your book table to draw people if you're there? And then Karen, how about you? Can you think of anything that, I know a great time to promote your book. Well, isn't it coming
February.
up? Go Red
February.
for Women.
That's February 2nd. Yeah.
That's February 2nd, but I thought I saw something recently about American Heart Month or
That's
something.
February.
That's February too, but
Yeah. No, last year I did a lot of promotion because I wrote an article for the Syracuse women.
there
And
you
I
go.
work at Krause Hospital, and I did podcasts, and I did a lot of interviews, and I wrote an article for them, and I did a lunch and learn, and I'm hoping that Krause, because Krause is where my life was saved,
Mhm.
and I work there, they might want to support my book.
There you go. Maybe put it in the gift shop, if they have a gift shop still, I don't know,
Yes, they do. Yeah.
but yeah, you're right. Or offer to do talks, at
Oh, for sure. I've done a
different
TED
places.
Talk. I've done a TED Talk before, so on
Oh
grief.
my gosh, Karen, that's
I'm
awesome.
hoping to.
I hope
So
you have a
I have a
website.
lot of plans for that. But this is great. I mean, just the little, because when I was going to ask, and Laura actually went ahead and asked, is like, how do you find the events?
Yeah.
And you've given me a lot to look at, which is great.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, that's how you find those events. And look at what else I found. the Polish American radio program. See, I went to a Polish festival to just go and meet people in Buffalo, and it was a pretty big one. And I met this guy. I gave him one of my books, and now I need to follow up to say, hey, did you have a chance to read the story? Because he was interested in maybe doing a radio interview. So I'm telling you, you got to go where your audience, where those connections are to your book, for sure. And I'm glad I brought up national holidays too, and national months. There is a website that has those, like today is National What Day or something. And connect those with your story, Rand, there's probably get outdoors and enjoy nature day. You know what I'm saying? You can tie it in with your story.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I carry around the bookmarks every day. I try to make sure I give at least one away. And I usually ask somebody, are you a hiker? Pick out somebody looks kind of lean and
Yeah,
yeah, I like to hike. And
well, that's wonderful.
yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Let's
Again,
bring-
I'm sorry.
days.
If you guys want to start asking questions, you can either raise your hand or put them in the chat, but Randy can continue.
Yeah, for sure. There's always a lot going on, for sure.
Well, I did want to ask Roxanne, because I know this kind of happened. I know I had it doing the second children's book, The Black Cyclone. I kind of ran into, it tried to be like, negative feedback and things like that, with saying, oh, it kind of reminds them of this superhero and things like that.
Mhm.
I didn't really focus on the negative. I would kind of answer, but if it was too negative, because I entered like the book onto multiple like online platforms, whether it be comics, children animation, things like that. And forgive me, that's my son actually watching his playing a game on his tablet. So if you hear that in the background. But one question I have is, how do you, like, if you had any negative feedback at any point, how did you handle that? Like, what was your method of handling that, and how did you turn that around into a positive?
Isn't that our worst fear as authors?
Yeah.
I know. I have reviews on Amazon, and like I say, I told you, I get emails from people, but isn't it the worst fear that someone would email you and say, I didn't really like your story, right? Or whatever. Now, fortunately, I haven't had that happen yet. However, as I spoke of earlier, sometimes negativity can come from your own family, right? Extended family stuff, So any negativity that comes your way, you just have to know that you did it. Because chances are the people that are being negative towards you have never written a book or knows what it takes, I think we were talking about this the other day, Ryan. We're in the top 3%. I mean, are there 97% of people that say, yep, I'm going to write a book? Yep. Okay, maybe they write it. Then they don't do nothing with it. It stays somewhere. And we're all guilty of that, right? We probably have stories that we started that are tucked away, like, oh yeah, I'll get it out one day, But, handling negativity, I guess you just have to be so confident in yourself that you got to think about all the people's lives you're touching that you don't even know you touch their lives. Like, think of a songwriter, okay? They don't know how many people have listened to that song and been inspired, And you just have to be confident and believe in yourself. And when you're feeling down, look at those positive emails and reviews on Amazon or wherever, because what is it they say? You got to change your state, right? Change your state. But I pray that, none of you would get negative reviews, because it's hard work to write a book. And remember that. And to find a publisher, So.
Yeah, so Karen and Rand have questions, but you touched on one that I had. How
Okay.
did you find your publisher?
Yes, good question, right? So when you write your story, you've got to have two things, like a query letter, which is kind of putting a feeler out there, like, hey, I've got a book that I wrote. and then you have what's called a summary, and that's like a 2-page summary of your story, like what happens. Oftentimes you start with your query letter to put out there, like even wildebeest, right, Laura? You need someone to reach out to you. Maybe it's an email even, but just to be professional. So always look up professional query letters. I have a book called Writer's Market, and you can get it right from the library. And a lot of publishers and agents or acquisitions editors have websites. So visit their website, and they often give you what they're looking for. Like as a novel writer, my entire book had to be done and ready, because if they want to see it, they want the whole thing. They might just want a few chapters, but then they're going to want the whole thing. With a nonfiction book, you can kind of get away with, here's an outline of what I'm writing about, and this is my message. And with a children's book, your manuscript needs to be all completed as well. But how did I find a publisher? So I thought about, think about it right now with all of you. I need to get a publisher. Where do you find one? Well, you can start looking online, right? Visiting their websites. You go to a bookstore or a library, find books in your genre. And oftentimes in the acknowledgments, they acknowledge who their agent was. They thank their editors. You know what I'm saying? Their acquisition editor, their agent. You look on the back of the book or inside, you'll see who their publisher is. So it kind of gives you a hint of the publishers that are publishing in your genre. Okay, so those are some of the things I did. And then you get that query letter going and you start emailing it out. Used to be you mailed it, but now it's emails. And then I said, okay, where do agents and publishers hang out in social media? Because I want to interact with them, right? Create a relationship. Come to find out, they hung out on Twitter, which is now X. So I started following them. And as they would comment about something, I would comment back, So one time, this person I'm following says, the average novel is 100,000 words. And I wrote, oh, well, I have historical fiction. I believe, because I've done some research, that it's acceptable to have more than that. Mine is 106,000 words. And this gentleman was an acquisitions editor, and he says, send it to me. And I'm like, okay, because sometimes it takes some luck, right, to find a publisher. So I did. And to make a long story short, he presented it to their board, and that's how I found my publisher. And even though when I had sent those query letters out and I was getting those rejections, oh yeah, Ryan, so back to your question. Oh, have you ever had any negativity? Yeah. Sorry, not interested. Darn. But don't let that hold me back. I kept going. My friend at the same time was querying. Do you know we queried the same publisher, not knowing it, because hers is a novel as well? And she got the same form letter I did. We were laughing about it. Like the letter was exactly the same, thanks, but no thanks, So you're going to get rejections, but you've heard the story of Colonel Sanders, right? He went to all those restaurants trying to sell his recipe, and hundreds, but he kept going. And now look what happened. We all know Kentucky Fried Chicken, right? KFC. So you just can't give up. You just got to keep trying, keep being yourself, That'll get you a publisher.
Thank you. And we can give a shout out to your publisher because we know you really like them.
Yeah. Morgan James published me. And Laura, I didn't know about wildebeest at the time, but now I do. See? And that's the other thing, right? This is the perfect example, right, Laura? I've made a relationship with you, and people want to know, like, and trust you, and they'll do business with you, So remember that.
Well, let's, Karen had a question and then we'll do Rand.
Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to, you talk so much about relationships, which I love,
Mhm.
because it is so crucial, and it's just amazing how much you've mentioned that. Um, you said you had a relationship with Barnes and Noble because of the things, going there and, kind of schmoozing and buying little gift cards. I love that. But how did you build the relationship before your book was launched to have the book launching there?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So because was doing some events to promote my book, that's another thing I did. I had book tables, okay, where my book wasn't for sale. Wait, what, Roxanne? What are you, nuts? No, I was promoting the pre-sales. So that's where I handed out a lot of these,
Gotcha.
Hey, I've got a book coming out November. Oh, here's a preview of it, and people took it. Oh, by the way, oh, I'm so excited that it's coming out. Do you want to enter to win the Barnes and Noble gift card? Oh, I don't know. Well, you don't have to be present to win. I'll mail it to you. Oh, okay. So that helped me with I was already establishing that relationship with Barnes and Noble. See how
Gotcha.
that worked? Because
And
I was going there and getting to know the manager.
no, that's great.
And
And
I guess I would say in the beginning, your relationships are about, your social media, letting people know, hey, I'm writing a book. Oh, did you know in my story, what was it I recently shared? Here's a video of a paper mill in 1922 or something. My character works at this paper mill. You know what I'm saying? Like you share little nuggets. You're like a Taylor Swift, right? What she share Easter eggs. You're sharing little Easter eggs of your book,
well, if I was like Taylor Swift, I wouldn't need this little conversation here. I would be
Well,
having it. But I also want to say one other thing, because when I was talking about negativity, something that I've learned is that it's not personal.
mhm,
It's not what the person's looking for. My sister and I have a pretty good relationship. I've been writing a memoir for many, many years that this is not what I've written this time. And that one is about adolescent. It's much more adolescent, very angsty. And my sister wants nothing to do with it. Well, this one is very uplift. It's different. And I
mhm.
was getting closer to reaching this point of finishing and getting to this. And I was excited. I was talking to my brother-in-law, and my sister says, well, I'm not reading it. And I said, no, it's not that book. It's this book. And she goes, I'm never reading any of your books.
Oh,
And no, but you know what? That's her stuff. It's not about
mhm,
me.
mhm.
I know what I'm doing is it's a message that people need to hear. And it's too personal for her. It's not about me, it's her issue. And I've just really learned that with the negativity, it can hurt for sure. It hurt initially,
Mhm.
but it's their stuff.
Yeah,
It's
you
their
can't let
stuff.
that hold you back, you
No,
know?
it's just their stuff.
Right.
And but yeah, I imagine it's hard when you're like looking and you're seeing all this positive, and then you're like, ooh, how'd that get in here? It's like, oh, and
Mhm.
that's the one you focus on. That's
Yeah.
the one you focus on.
Do you think like when I was even promoting my book for pre-sale that I didn't get rejection? Well, yeah, people would come by and go, no, no, thank you. No, that doesn't interest me. You know what I mean? Like, ooh, you can take it personally, but like you said, you have to say, that's okay. They're not my genre. They're not my reader. I once shared a book table at something called Night Market. This is happens around Christmas in Syracuse. And what it is people come there, they have wine and hors d'oeuvres, and they visit all the vendor tables. So because the vendor table was $100, myself and another author split the table. So it's okay. So we're there, and she's a mystery writer. Did you know all she had to say was mystery? I write mysteries, and people came right to her because they were her genre. But if I'm standing there going, hey, I've got a book about my Polish grandmother, I'm not their genre. It's historical fiction. They want mystery. Like you say, it's just not their cup of tea, and we can't take it personally. Hmm.
That's great. That's good advice. Rand, what's your question?
Yeah, I
Right.
had a couple things. Roxanne, you said one time to me that you had gone to some event where you sold 16 books.
Yes.
And I was wondering about that. And then I wanted to ask a question about bookstores.
Okay, so where's the place I sold 16 books? I was a vendor at a Polish festival. Locally Syracuse, there's a Polish fest in downtown Syracuse. I was right around my genre. And then the Polish home in Syracuse had their own little festival. Again, I was right around my readers, people who are interested in Polish history and culture. So that's what helps you sell books is finding that target audience. Because like I said, okay, when I was at a craft show at the Liverpool Elks, say, okay, sure, I sold a few books, only 3 say, but I made so many great connections though. Sometimes it's more about who you're connecting with, or Jess Novak's entrepreneurial thing for women. I made some great connections there. For example, that's where I learned about Wildebeest and Authorpreneur. If I had not gone there, I wouldn't have known about Wildebeest and Authorpreneurs. So see, look where something can lead. So don't always make it about selling the books, making it about, finding your audience. And the books will sell themselves. Like the mystery girl. She just had to say mystery. Ooh, they're like magnet. Ooh, I want it.
Okay.
And then what about bookstores?
Yeah, I've identified about 10 here in Knoxville, and I've gone to 3. I did discover it's probably better to go on their website first and see if they have any form that you need to fill out.
Mm-hmm.
And then the one I went to, they wanted me to set the price, and then they did a 60-40 split. They didn't seem very excited at all. I left the hardcover and the paperback, which the book that Wildebeest produces, I mean, it's eye-catching. And
Mm.
looking at the other books in that store, I'm like, this one will stand out like crazy because it's so different. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't. And then I'm wondering about, well, is this even worth it to
Oh, Rand,
bookstore?
this is perfect timing. So last week, my husband and I went to Massachusetts because it's my birthday and our anniversary, and we stayed a week on the coast. So while I'm there, I'm like, I'm going to visit some bookstores, right?
Okay.
Okay, so here I am in a town that's 340 miles away from my house. How am I going to approach them about my book, right, Rand?
Mhm.
So I go in, and at first I'm just walking around. I say hi to the person at the front desk, or at the cashier place. And then I'm like, hi, how are you doing today? Oh, hey, I'm visiting from Syracuse and I wanted to check out your bookstore. And by the way, thank you for having a bookstore. This is great, you know? So, do you want to know what the guy said to me? Syracuse? Oh, I went to SU. Oh my gosh. So that was able to strike up the conversation. So
Mhm.
what I had brought with me was I brought some of my tools, like my bookmark, and my publisher. I'm going to share this with Laura. I'm glad you brought this up, Rand. Gave me what's called a tip sheet. Now, Laura, maybe you already know about these. Yeah, I'm sure you do. Or do you give your authors a tip sheet?
So what we have done is made these quick looks. They're a little bit longer than that, but after we talked the other day, I met with Jordan, our operations manager, and we did talk about taking the parts out of the quick looks because the quick looks were made for distribution. They weren't made for the use that you're using it.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, yeah, we did have a discussion.
Yeah, so I'm going to share this with you. I'll email it to you. So what this has, it has a little summary about my book. It has the ISBN and where to order it. Like mine goes through Publishers Group West, which is part of Ingram. Ingram owns them. And it just looks like a little professional, say. And on the back is the comps, like books that are similar to mine. And there's a link where they can download the book, but obviously the link isn't going to work because it's a piece of paper. But I was able to leave this with them. And then I asked, oh, would you like a copy of my book as well? Ryan, they said, oh, no, thank you. Oh, Okay. Rejection, right? So as I went into more bookstores, I was getting a little more comfortable, right? Because you got to do that first one. And then my husband and I are going through this town, and there's this big banner, and it says Polish Festival, September 28th. And I'm like, or something, the end of September. Oh my God, is there a bookstore in this town? So we stopped for a sandwich, and I asked, and they go, oh yeah, there's one that just opened up. Really? So we went, and when I was able to talk with the girl, about my Polish grandmother, she was much more receptive to my tip sheet. And I left her 3 copies. I just told her, well, if they sell, that's great. At least they're on the shelf, right? And she
Mhm.
could order more. And the other thing is, again, I know I'm using newspapers. They have a weekly paper, and she had an ad in here. So what I'm doing is I'm going to reach out to this paper, put a little ad in there directing people to her bookstore. But I'm going to let her know that because I have her email, and I told her that. But it's that connection, see? Do you think once I put that ad in here, maybe it's going to cost me, I don't know, $40, maybe $50, right? But that's not going to have her want to help me. She would probably put my books front and center and talk them up,
Right.
because I learned who would have thought there's a Polish community in Ipswich, Massachusetts. I didn't know. So sometimes when you're doing these things, the universe opens up to you when you least expect it, and it's not easy to go in bookstores where you don't know the person. But again, it's about, and I would buy a book from them too and thank them for being there. That's the big thing,
Okay.
It's not all about WIIFM. Have you ever heard of that? What's in it for me? Like, what's in
Oh.
it for me? No, it's about how do I bring value to them? How can I give them value?
Good.
Right. If I was going back, I could offer to do a book talk, right?
Right. Could you
And you
email
want to
it
know,
me?
I just want to share one more thing. I better watch the time. We stopped at one of the visitor centers, right? So you go in, and we're talking, hey, what's there to see around here? This is in Gloucester, not Gloucester, Gloucester. We're talking with the 2 ladies that are, what do you call it? The people that help you. The one has a radio show called Good Morning Gloucester. I told her about my book and how it's at the bookstore, and I offered to give her a copy, but she goes, oh no, I'll go to the bookstore and get it. Oh my gosh. So that bookstore that I left my tip sheet at, and they were like, oh yeah, I don't know if I want one of your books. Well, now someone's going to go there and order it. Like, isn't that pretty cool? Like, I like it. So you just never know. You just got to keep going. Don't give up. Don't give up.
Thank you.
Okay, we have probably time for one more question if
One
anyone
more.
wants to ask Roxanne anything else.
Let's see. Does anyone have anything else? I'm gonna look at my notes here.
I just have one last question. That's I mean, I know you completed your book, and it sounds like you're having a great time, going out, finding different ways to market it, promote it. But how do you determine what's next after this book here?
That's right. Because I can look at my calendar now and like, okay, I'm doing a book thing at the Baldwinsville Library. Remember, the Port Byron Library reached out to me. This Saturday is in Fulton, there's a Polish festival. But like you say, what do I got for November? Oh boy. Well, my book anniversary is coming up, my 1-year anniversary. So there's something I can say. Yeah. And I could even do that virtually. You can do virtual book promotions. Like, say your book's connected, like we talked about, Karen, in February, with National Heart Month. You could do an online talk about your book and how it relates to that, So for my book anniversary, I'm going to do a little online promotion. I'm going to get people to be a guest speaker. Like my publisher, I'm going to ask David Hancock if he'll come on and say a few words. And some of my author friends, like Rand, I could invite you to just, hey, here's my friend Rand. And at the same time, what am I doing? I'm promoting Rand's book, right? That's right. And like Laura is recording something, I record this and I can either take snippets or share it on my social media, even though it's over. So yeah, what's next? You always got to be thinking that, right? What's next? What holiday's coming up? What national day? I don't know. Is there a Polish holiday coming where I can promote my book? You know, offer value. Polish American Heritage Month is October. Ooh, there you go. Oh, and press releases, right? Write little press releases about your book and send them out to the media. You never know. They're always looking for stories, you know? And even go big, think big. I don't know, send it to your local news station, you know, wherever you see authors are. Oh, and that's the other thing. Make time to go to workshops. What's next? Go to some workshops online. You know, go visit some author promotions that might be going on, you know. Join the wildebeest. You're all here. That's great. You know, get around other authors. That's what's next. And then it comes to you, what's next? That's where the ideas spark.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Roxanne. This has been amazing. And thank you everybody for asking questions and showing up. I think showing up is the first part of succeeding, right?
That's right. Even if we had one person show up, it's okay. Keep going. Right, Laura? Keep doing it. Keep going.
Always a learning process. You have not failed if you didn't learn, as long as you learned something.
That's right.
But I appreciate you so much for coming and spreading all of your advice from your experience and being so positive and motivating. I think you challenged at least 2 people this evening to do something.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I love it. And remember, right, you're a business, you're a professional. So be proud.
That's right.
Keep
So
your head high.
Roxanne is our resident cheerleader in the Authorpreneur community. And if you're watching this and you're not in the group, please just head over to the website and check out. There's a link right on the homepage and check it out. Do the free trial. Come meet us, hang out for 2 weeks and see if you like it. And then if you do, you can stay.
Yeah. What have you got to lose, right? Nothing.
So
Everything to gain.
we will be having more of these. This was our first guest speaker event. So again, everybody, round of applause for Roxanne.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Our next one is lined up. It will probably be on editing. We have a new partner editing company called DLA Editors, and their founder will be joining us tentatively for October 30th to talk about all things editing. And we hope you'll join us for that one and maybe have already started a relationship with us in the community. But thanks everybody for coming. Enjoy the rest of your night. And next meeting is actually next Wednesday evening.
Okay.
So we'll see you there.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Roxanne. That was beautiful.
Oh, thank you.